right, so let's talk a little bit about slope. Everything you need to know for this section is right here. Slope is rise over run, which can also be written as y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Sometimes I get questions of like which one's my x2, which one's my x1, whatever. It doesn't really matter as long as you are consistent. So what do I mean by that? Well, to do these problems, I see I have 2 points. Remember with your points, x is written first and then y. So, as long as I make x1 and y1 the same point, I'm in good shape. So I'm going to always start with the one that's leftmost as my x and y1. So I got x1 here, y1 here, x2 there, and y2 over there. Once I've labeled them, plug them in, plug them in. So I start off with y2. y2 for me is that 4 minus my y1, which for me is the 2. After that, I move on to my x's. My x2 is the 1, and my x1 is minus. Make sure you always include that minus, but be careful. It's -1 was already negative, so minus -1. So just don't drop signs. We will simplify, but write in every negative that you see. You might even have a double negative happening. Equal to 4 minus 2. I know that's 2. Over 1 minus -1. 2 negatives make a positive. So I have 1 plus 1, which is 2. And in this case, my slope is very easy to simplify. I would get 1. Okay. A lot of times our slope might not be so easily simplified. If you're getting a fraction, don't make slopes into decimals. That's just not what Synergy is going to want, or Apex will want. Leave them in that nice kind of fractional form if it doesn't break down easily. So let's do another one. x1, y1, x2, y2. y2's first, so 5 minus y1. My y1 is -3, so it's minus -3. Again, we'll simplify to make it pretty later, but right now just make sure you keep all your negatives. x2 is 1 for me, minus -3. So in both of these, we're going to have to simplify some double negatives. 2 negatives make a positive, so I get 8 on top. 2 negatives make a positive, I get 4 on bottom, which would simplify down to just 2. If they do simplify them. Eventually some of these just might not simplify, and we'll see what to do there. My next one, I'm going to start with x1, y1, x2, y2. Again, I'm reading this from left to right. That's how I'm labeling them. If you flip them, as long as you're consistent, it should stay the same. But y2 for me is 6 minus y1, which is 7. x2 is 3 minus x1, which is 1. So 6 minus 7 will give me -1. And 3 minus 1 would give me 2. So this is a good example here. I could do division and make this into like -0.5, but realistically you can just leave it like this with the -1/2. This also makes sense if we're looking at this graph, just kind of to point this out. If we look at this line, it was moving down. If it's moving down, I should think negative. This line was moving up, so I should get a positive answer, which I did. Same thing here, I got a positive answer. Before even doing number 4, I should be able to kind of observe it and think, all right, this is moving up. I'm going to get something positive if I've done this correctly. So it's a good way to kind of test your answer ahead of time. But x1, y1, x2, y2. So I get -4 because my y2 is negative. Don't drop negatives, okay? Now I put in that minus sign, and I still have another negative, so I do parentheses -6. So I got a lot of minuses here. We'll simplify it, but while you're filling it in, just keep everything in there. X2 is 2 minus -4. So let's start simplifying. I'm going to start with the bottom, actually. So 2 negatives make a positive. I would end up with 6 on bottom here. And what's happening up here? This negative and this negative would make a positive. So I would get -4 plus 6, which would leave me with a 2. This is one where I can simplify this fraction, so I should simplify it. 2 goes into both 2 and 6. So I would get 1 if I divide this by 2, divided by 2, and then 6 divided by 2 would be 3. So I can still leave it in that fractional form, it's just more simplified to -3. If you have issues with simplifying and say it's a multiple choice question, one thing you can do is you could put this in a calculator and you would get 0.333333 repeating. And then you could put the answer choices in the calculator too and make the fractions into decimals and see which one matches your decimal if it is something you struggle with. The next one's ask about rate of change. Guess what? Rate of change is just a word for slope. So you would still do x1, y1, x2, y2. So 45 minus 15 over 3 minus 1. Which would what? Give me 30 over 2 or 15 miles per hour. Okay? The only reason I added in the miles per hour is because that was the units I'm given. So it's possible, just pay attention if they give you something where you actually have some type of measurement, it might be included in your answer. There could be 2 answer choices with 15. So make sure you're paying attention to which one's using miles and which one's using inches or something. So once again, we have an x1, y1, x2, y2. This is just another check to do. It's going upward, so I'm thinking I should get a positive answer. So we would get 12 minus 3 over 4 minus 1. 12 minus 3 is 9, and 4 minus 1 is 3. Simplifying that down, I would get $3 dollars per kilogram, because I have dollars over here in kilograms. So y on top when you do these, and x on bottom. So this is my y, my x. So that's why miles is on top and x is on bottom. Y-axis, x-axis, y is on top, x is on bottom. And the next ones are just more basic slope questions. Again, I would just go through all of them, x1, y1, x2, y2. If you keep that kind of consistency, it's just going to be really easy to always know what you're plugging in where. x1, y1, x2, y2, and so on. And you can fill these in. So if we were doing this equation, y2 is 18 minus -10 over x2, 12 minus -14. Again, keep your signs. Don't start dropping them. Keep that negative between them because that's in the formula. And parenthesize your your numbers if you need to. So plus, 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 because 2 negatives make a positive. 28 over 26, right? Yes. Both of these would be divisible by 2 because they're even. So if you see two even numbers, you should think divide by 2, which would leave me with 14 over 13. And that would be my final answer there. Again, we're seeing it's ending in a fraction. Next one, y2 is 2 minus 12 over x2 is 1 minus negative 3. 2 minus 12 will give me negative 10 over 1 minus negative 3. They become positive, so that's 4. Again, both of these are even. We could divide by 2. We get negative 5 over 2. When you see a negative with a slope, that's telling you this would be a downward slope, whereas the 14 over 13 should be going upward. Yeah. But finishing this out, again, if you have any questions about this, we can go over it in more detail. But hopefully you've gotten kind of a little bit of the pattern that's going on here. 2 negatives make a positive, so that gives me 21 over 3 minus, what's that, 28, negative 28. This can be simplified, so keep an eye out for simplification. Both of these are divisible by 7. So 3 over negative 4. The negative, a lot of times with apex, will be on the top. So just be careful about that. That's why I moved it out to the front. If you wrote it with the 4 still negative, that's fine. Just be careful of how apex might present it to you. And our last one, 20 minus 14 over 16 minus 4. 20 minus 14 is 6, and 12. Both of these can be simplified, and apex will simplify them. So again, we could divide both of these actually. We can take it a step further. 6 goes into 6, and 6 goes into 12. So 1 over 2. Again, if you have troubles with simplifying, you can turn them into decimals and then turn answer choices into decimals as well. So we'll go over that a little bit in class if you struggle with that. But what you need to know with slope is all in that formula. Rise over run are y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Plug everything in, take your time, take as many steps as you need. 2 negatives make a positive, and you should be good to go.